My name is Jonathan Stone. I'm Executive Director of Save the Bay, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tom Kutcher, who's Save the Bay's Narragansett Baykeeper. Tom?
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you all for coming out to beautiful Oakland Beach this morning. We're addressing you from this local beach because Narragansett Bay has been in water quality crisis. The causes are largely local. You can't see it, but in many areas around the bay, the water's not healthy for people, and it's not healthy for fish or crabs. In fact, this beautiful beach has been closed 27 times this year due to bacterial contamination. And it's not just this beach that's been closed. We've had beaches closed in every corner of our bay. I wrote an op-ed piece last week, and I asked people to picture their favorite 5-year-old swimming in a pool of water contaminated with enough sewage and other pollution that it could make them sick. And I said, basically, after it rains, a closed beach, this is our bay. And it's not just a shock tactic. This is reality. When it rains in Rhode Island, we swim in pollution. And we've had a lot of rain this year. But it's not the rainfall that's the problem. It's the pollution that we leave on our watershed that's the problem. So, we continually leave pollution on our lawns and our driveways, on our streets, and in our parking lots. And this is stuff like, pet waste and lawn fertilizer, the things that drip from our cars, the nasty goo that drips from the bottom of the dumpster behind the restaurant. And, this stuff mixes with the rain and forms a soup of pollution that drains into our stormwater system, and in most cases pours out directly into the bay or into a tributary of the bay. And this is how things get polluted. In fact, shockingly, some of these stormwater pipes discharge this nasty pollution soup directly onto our swimming beaches. Where kids play in the sand or play in the little nasty stream that's trickling down through the beach. Am I the only one that thinks this is crazy? So another problem is that when it rains, our failing septic systems contaminate our groundwater. And this happens on a local level as well. So the worst of these are cesspools, which are basically just a hole in the ground that intersects the water table that we flush our toilets into, and it contaminates the groundwater directly. And like surface water, groundwater runs downstream. And in my neighborhood, we can see the groundwater coming out through the cobbles at low tide. And I know I have cesspools in my neighborhood. In other areas, the groundwater finds the path of least resistance by going into leaky stormwater pipes. So it goes through the seams or the cracks in stormwater pipes, and it gets a free ride shot right out to the bay or right out to one of our beaches. And this is basically raw sewage. And this is landing on our beaches. And we've documented this, and it happens more often than you think. So beach closures are bad for people. They're bad for our economy. They're bad for our quality of life. But our pollution also has a bad effect on our bay ecosystem. So the same, contaminated runoff and contaminated groundwater that carries a bacteria that can make us sick also carries excessive nutrients that can cause algae blooms and low oxygen events that can kill fish and crabs and shellfish. So, if you remember, 10 years ago, almost to this month, right out here in Greenwich Bay, we had a massive fish kill from low oxygen. So that fish kill, prompted us to upgrade the major source at the time of our bacteria and nutrient inputs, and these were the large urban wastewater treatment facilities upriver. And since that work has been done, we've seen significant improvements bay-wide in water quality due to those efforts. But still this summer, we're seeing low oxygen right out here in the bay, right now, as low as the event that caused that 2003 fish kill. So, clearly, more work needs to be done at the local level to address the outdated and failing systems in our own neighborhoods. So, let's not wait for the fish to die. Our beautiful bay, the pride of our state, is in crisis now. How could we possibly choose not to address that?
Thanks, Tom. In a moment, we'll have time for questions, and in a moment, I'm going to ask Representative Teresa Tanzi to come forward, and after her, Mayor Scott Avedisian to come forward and offer their perspective and their remarks. But before I do so, I'd like to follow up on Tom's description of the problem that we face here in Rhode Island with a call to action. The answer is we can fix this problem of local polluted runoff. We know what needs to be done. We need to eliminate cesspools and reduce polluted runoff into the bay. At a state level, Rhode Island voters have overwhelmingly approved investments in upgrading our wastewater treatment plants. The Providence Combined Sewer Overflow System is a prime example. Since phase 1 of the CSO was completed in 2008, we have seen a significant improvement in water quality in the Upper Bay. Beach closures associated with wastewater treatment plant overflows have declined dramatically. The beach closures we are seeing this year, and they're illustrated on this chart, and you'll note they're not all in the upper part of the bay. They're all over Narragansett Bay, all regions of the bay. The beach closures we're seeing this year are associated with local pollution, leaking cesspools, failed septic systems, animal waste, pesticides and fertilizers, automotive oil and grease carried into the bay by rainwater. This problem can be solved. Look at Bristol. Bristol used their experience of repeated beach closures at Town Beach, Bristol Town Beach, to invest in the capture and treatment of polluted runoff and wastewater from local failed septic systems. The result, Bristol has had no beach closures this year at Town Beach in Bristol. So what are we asking for? We are calling on municipalities to ramp up stormwater management programs. We are calling on the state of Rhode Island to support municipalities through grants, incentives, low-cost financing, and technical assistance. And last but not least, long overdue, we are calling for the General Assembly to finally pass a cesspool phase-out law that once and for all eliminates cesspools statewide. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Representative Teresa Tanzi of Narragansett. Teresa.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. It's a beautiful day. I drove up from South Kingstown this morning, and all the beach traffic that I passed coming down was astounding. I was really glad to be headed north. Of course, I'll have to drive home in it shortly, but to me, it was very important to see that as a reminder of the economic impact that these beach closures have on our state and on our community. And looking at this chart here, you can see in my district alone, we've had 2 closures. And it's not just near the wastewater treatment plant. As Jonathan was just saying, these are local source point contaminations. We have had 2 closures at Narragansett Town Beach, which is virtually unheard of for us. So this is something that I am experiencing firsthand where I live and am advocating for statewide. I, of course, am following in the footsteps of Representative Donna Walsh, who's been the champion of this legislation for years and years. After years of doing it, she decided it was time to take a step back and maybe allow for some different energy. And it's been a joy for me to work with Save the Bay in working on this piece of legislation. So specifically, I'm a co-sponsor of the statewide cesspool phase-out, and it's at point of sale. So I agree wholeheartedly we need to attack this and eliminate all of the 25,000 remaining cesspools in the state. but we're also in some tough economic times. So we've come to advocate for a piece of that for now, to kind of continue that momentum of the waste of the cesspool phase out that's fully implemented in the coastal areas as of December 31st of this year. So what we're asking for people to do is to continue that momentum as that cesspool phases out. We need to ask you to speak to your local communities, talk to the people who are using these resources in your community about how valuable they are. Speak to local elected officials and get them to understand the importance of these resources, these beaches in your community. And then continue to advocate to your General Assembly members, to your reps and to your senators, and let them know this is an issue that you care deeply about. This is the time. I mean, the number of beach closures already, and we're not even in August yet. So I just really do encourage you all to act. And thank you very much for coming out.
Mayor Avedisian, would you like to step forward?
Thanks, Jonathan. Let me first start by welcoming Save the Bay to Warwick. We're always pleased to be at any event with Save the Bay when we can talk about what this all is. And this is a perfect example of why we should all be here and why we should all be concerned. And let me welcome Council President Donna Travis, Councilman Joe Solomon, Councilman Ed Lattiser, and beyond Representative Tanzi, let me welcome Representative Ferry, Representative Handy, and Representative Shikarchi. And so you can see that there's a number of local officials here today concerned about these numbers, and we're not very happy with our numbers. And you can see that the highest percentage, the highest numbers are here in the city of Warwick this year. And so while we know that we have 39 miles of coastline here in the city of Warwick that we treasure and that we encourage people to use and to recreate in and to understand what an important part of the quality of life that those 39 miles are for the people of the city of Warwick, but also for the rest of the state of Rhode Island. We also can tell you that we are fully aware of the issues with people not connected, cesspools continuing. We've done for many years a program down here to get people connected into the actual sewer system, but we know that that's not the only thing that we need to be doing. So after having talked with Jane Austen a number of times and talked with Janet Coit from DEM a number of times about exactly what it was that we needed to do in this city, I'm actually pleased, Jonathan, to be able to say that next week we are posting a position within our Public Works Department who will be a stormwater engineer, to have them take over this project, to be able to lead us into the types of activities that need to be done, to plan and evaluate where we are, where our problems really emanate from, how we then put together a punch list to go out and solve them, and to try that next year when we're here, we'll see really low numbers from the areas that we're not, and I'm sure the council and our state reps are not happy with those numbers either. So we're here to be able to work in a partnership with Save the Bay and with DEM, and we look forward to not only implementing all of that, but we look forward to next year being able to look at better numbers and to continue to educate the public as to why these things are important and why our quality of life really does matter. So hopefully you will help spread the word. We're looking for good candidates when we post that position in a week and a half or so. And we'd really like to have somebody who can come in and lead us. We already lead the state in recycling. We lead the state in open space preservation. And it's about time that the city of Warwick take its rightful place to lead the state in stormwater management.
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to say, Mayor, please do not hire any Save the Bay employees. I don't want anyone applying for that job. Be very opposed to that. I just want to say in closing, and then take questions for any of us here. This is an outrage. This is long overdue. Cesspools have been known sources of pollution for 50 years. We have 25,000 of them in the state. They don't affect just the coastal towns. They affect every community in the state, and every body of water, every pond, every stream are affected in a densely populated state like Rhode Island. So it's time to support the great work that's been done around the state Thus far, a lot of effort has been put into addressing stormwater, sewering, and other forms of controlling and treating pollution. But this is just not, it's not acceptable. We are the ocean state. We can't, it's so core to our identity and our quality of life here to be able to enjoy the bay. So I ask all of you to join us and join our political representatives in creating the political will to invest in stormwater treatment. So thanks. And questions for me or for anyone else here on the political side? Yes?
Can you explain why the numbers are so high here at Oakland Beach and Glenwood?
Well, I may defer to the mayor on this as well, but I would just say that in Warwick, we do have significant parts of the city that continue to have cesspools and failed septic systems, which are septic systems that are no longer functioning as they were designed. And we also have a very, very densely populated city, our third largest city in the state, or is it second largest, mayor? Second, apologies. It's a city with all the amenities and facilities that you'd expect in the city. Lots of roads, lots of parking lots, lots of commercial development, and lots of residential development. So Warwick is challenged by the development over the last 200 years of the city and the surrounding neighborhoods. So these are not easy problems to fix, and no one is minimizing the effort and resources that are required to address the problems in places like Warwick. Greenwich Bay itself is a very shallow body of water and has relatively poor circulation, meaning the tidal flushing that affects other parts of the bay are less pronounced here, just due to the shape and depth of the bay. So we tend to have a concentration of water quality problems in Greenwich Bay that are related to the circulation or lack thereof in this part of Narragansett Bay. So that's another contributing factor as to why you see pretty extensive beach closures in Greenwich Bay and Oakland Beach.
John, if you compare this year to last year, for example,
Sure.
the numbers are significantly different. And if you go back prior years, again, significantly different. It seems like this year, the main difference is the amount of rain that we've had and maybe the winds that we've had. So isn't this sort of an extraordinary event? I'm taking a look at the bigger picture of all that's been done with the CSOs
Right.
and our efforts to phase out septic systems and failing septic systems and cesspools. Isn't this just sort of an extraordinary event?
My answer would be no, it isn't. If you look at the data, and the Providence Journal published some of the data from the Department of Health yesterday in the paper, there is a lot of volatility in the number of beach closures, no question, and it's influenced by three main factors. Rainfall in the summer, not rainfall in December, rainfall in the summer months, temperature, and wind. And when you have lots of rainfall, high temperature, and little wind, little storminess, you tend to have more adverse, more poor water quality days than other years. But the numbers are still astoundingly high. If you look back over the last 10 years, while on average we've seen a general trend downward in beach closures, the pattern of beach closures has changed somewhat to be more of a pattern like this and less of an upper bay pattern. In other words, the impact of the investments in the major wastewater treatment plants is having a beneficial effect, and on that basis we've had an improvement. But even since the CSO, we've had some pretty high beach closure years and some low beach closure years. Last year, for the entire summer, the Department of Health reported 54 beach closure days. We're at 107 right now. 2 years ago, for the entire summer, we had 73. We're at 107 right now. We're not even halfway through the summer. So yes, it is a higher than normal year compared to the last two, but prior to that, we had beach closure days over 100.
And what do meteorologists think? Can we expect more warmer summers with lots of rain, or do you think, like John suggested, this will be an anomaly?
There's no question that summers are getting hotter. The weather patterns are becoming, we tend to have more intense rain events, and Warwick was subject to those, much of the flooding in 2010 as an example. and we're having higher temperatures, and we're having more stability, or I should say, more sort of hot, still days. So these are not going to get easier, and they're not going to get, you can't count on weather to solve it. And again, I would just want to emphasize what Tom said. This is about pollution. It's not about rainfall.
Mayor, Save the Bay says you have too many old cesspools in town.
We do.
What do you do about that?
Well, the state has phased them out. The question will now be working with our sewer authority to either bring sewer service to that area, or we've got to come up with a different septic system that will not leach into the groundwater. And that is the things that our city council and our sewer authority have been working on. There's a committee that's been put together to actually do that.
What's the price tag and what do taxpayers think of it?
Well, it depends. If you're putting in an individual septic system, you could be talking somewhere between $25,000 and $45,000 for your property. And some areas we're not able to bring regular gravity line sewers to. So we need to talk about whether or not we're going to do grinder pumps, whether or not that's viable for a neighborhood. But that's why we have a committee that's looking at where the funding will come from, what our sewer authority will do, and what they're responsible for.
Are you still working with East Greenwich to tie into their sewage treatment plants for the areas that are?
We do in some instances. We also do in West Warwick and in Cranston. So, and they do the same with us as well.
And how do beach closures affect the economy of, say, Oakland Beach? Like, what do you hear from the small business owners?
It's all
around
about
here?
quality of life. People want to come to the ocean and they want to be able to use it. So when they're not able to do that, it's a detrimental effect on everyone, not only on the people who live here, but on all the businesses. So,
Do the local businesses do worse when the beaches aren't
sure,
open?
absolutely. I mean, I think it just, that it's pretty elementary that if you're coming down here and you're able to go enjoy the ocean and you're able to go in the bay and you're able to go swimming and you stop at the restaurants and you buy gas on your way here and you stop, get things on the way home, that is that kind of activity is really helpful to all of our local businesses.
If I could just add one thing, because it's not just that loss of that one particular day at the beach, it's about a loss of confidence that people begin to have. And so they start to look at Oakland Beach and they start to say, we're not even going to think about going to Oakland Beach anymore because they've had so many closures. Chances are, they're going to look to go to other places. So it's a lost opportunity not only on that day, but in reputation and in confidence that people have in the quality of the water. And that not only affects those high numbers, it affects all of Rhode Island. So people may start to look to Connecticut to go for their summer vacations because the last time they stayed in Bonnet Shores in Narragansett, they couldn't go to the beach 3 days. So they're going to look somewhere completely different.
Exactly. I was going to also bring that up. But I was glad you brought up Bristol because I've been working with some of the people that the city of Bristol. And when they got their committee together, which I'm forming a committee that's dealing with just stormwater, the runoffs and all the stuff in the parking lot. After addressing their issues and like doing something with the parking lot or putting vegetation that they had problem with geese, we don't have that. But they improved 80% of their quality. And that year alone, they had only one closure, and I'm so excited to hear you say now they don't even have any. When you see Warwick has double-digit numbers, that is outrageous. So we definitely have to address all the issues that are addressing the problem of the pollution. So I look forward to working with Save the Bay with that too.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Warwick not only has the highest number of beach closures this year, but I believe the highest 3 beaches in the state since we've been monitoring are all in Warwick. How much of a priority is this, to Warwick, and how much should the state be helping Warwick?
Well, we have a lot of technical assistance from the state to begin with, and that's why in talking with Janet Coit, the director of DEM, we've come up with one plan which we'll put into effect very soon as to how we're going to move forward. But when Representative Tansey talks about grants to help out with that is very important. Our sewer authority has no bonding capacity at the moment, so they are not able to go out and do those projects without some state assistance.
Mayor, have you supported the legislation and has the city council endorsed it as well?
I know I have. I don't know if the council endorsed the cesspool phase out. I don't believe so. I don't think there was anything before them pending to do so.
Yes.
It's Jonathan, thank you. I realized early on when I was campaigning, I'm Councilman Ed Lattiser, I'm a freshman councilman at the City of Warwick. I realized early on in campaigning that sewers, the lack of sewers, the affordability of sewers, and the sustainability of the sewer authority was critical to the City of Warwick. And I believe, speak freely to the fact that it's evident that the city council is also cognizant of this and supports making this correction, because the city council unanimously supported the resolution that I docketed 2 months ago to readdress the sewer authority. We're going to be looking at the cost of implementing the sewers, interest rates applied to the sewers, the assessments of the sewers, how we're going to raise the monies to do this, how we're going to make it sustainable and affordable. And we've put together a great committee. We have Jane Lawson from Save the Bay, who has graciously agreed to serve on this committee for me. We have people from DEM, CRMC, from the Mayor's Office, from Department of Public Works. Councilman Joe Gallucci is vice chair of this committee. And we're really excited about this. And the City Council does take this very seriously. And I believe this committee is going to be successful in sewering the remaining 45% of the city of Warwick. And next time we look at this chart, the city of Warwick will be the leader in a very good way.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I was just curious as to how many local Oakland Beach small business owners are here today.
John, do you know of anyone who?
No. No, I think it's the last minute too, they didn't know.
My second question is, do you have any idea what the Bristol program cost?
I can't give you a specific number. I know it was expensive. It was comprehensive and included investments in the parking and landscaping around the Town Beach parking lot. It included ripping up and removing parts of the paved surfaces that drain into the bay, re-landscaping. It also included plumbing, the collection and treatment of wastewater that was leaching from homes in a neighborhood just upland of the beach. I want to say, I think the Projo had a number in there, $1.2 million, a number like that. But you should confirm that with the town. Yep.
State legislators, if this is an economic issue, why isn't this a bigger deal at the State House? Why are you guys having a hard time getting your colleagues to support this issue?
I think that I have to work harder as the main sponsor of the bill in educating people about the available dollars that are out there. We have the Rhode Island Clean Water Agency that works in most communities within the state that offer low interest loans, 2% over 10 years, to replace a failing cesspool or septic and to upgrade. So we also have financing through that agency for sewer tie-ins. So, and again, that I think maybe even 0% to the community, and then a 2% over 5 years to repay it. So, there are opportunities that I think many people don't know about, and they're more fearful of the cost. Somebody drops a number like $20,000, and it's significant. People think that we're still in this economic downturn, or are well aware that we're still in an economic downturn, and they think now is not the time. And I myself am going to work to educate people on this much more so. But one thing that Jane had brought up to me from Save the Bay was that people who have this 40, 60-year-old technology in their backyards, they haven't been incurring any costs that the rest of us who have sewers or who have upgraded. So this cost that we're talking about, 10, 20, 25,000, we all who are sewered or have upgraded systems have been paying all along. And these are individuals and homeowners who for 30, 40, 50, 60 years have paid nothing to help protect our environment. And I understand that it's a difficult time, but it's time for them to start paying their share as well. I don't want that to sound unduly harsh, but it is a realization that the burden has been on those who have upgraded. And as far as the point of sale, which is legislation that I sponsored, there's 25,000 homes that still have cesspools. 5% of the homes that are on the market for sale have cesspools. So this is one step forward. Of course, we'd love to see full phase out, but we understand that people are still reticent at this time in the economy. So what this would do when financing is actually available because of a mortgage, this is the ideal time for people to address the issue. From the talks that I've had with realtors, it's already a consideration if people are looking into purchasing a home that has a cesspool, it's something that's already on the table. They're saying, we're not gonna buy this unless you lower it by $40,000. We're not gonna buy this until you fix that and address it. So anecdotally, we haven't gotten the numbers from the realtors because they still do oppose this legislation. It is happening already, and it needs to continue. Massachusetts has enacted this. In 1995, it's been an incredibly successful way of dealing with it. It's still not enough, though. It's just a small step forward in a tough economic time. We need to move to full phase out. But right now, I think that the real way to keep this momentum going is through this point of sale legislation.
One other issue to go along with what Representative Tansey said. Many years ago, we had a Greenwich Bay initiative here, and we used some community development block grant funds for the low-income residents of Oakland Beach to tie into sewers free of charge. And you would think, if you had that ability, you'd have 100% participation, and we didn't. We had a number of people who said, since there's no penalty, I'm not going to do anything. So even when we had free money to be able to tie people in and could show them you live looking at this beautiful body of water all the time, we still couldn't get some people to take advantage of that. So we've got to figure out a different way, and more often than not, Bob, what they came back with, well, there's no penalty if I don't do it, so therefore I'm not going to go through all that.
Is there any way you know the number of cesspools in Warwick?
Yes, we do.
So I wanted to ask I'm sorry, you want to answer?
Is there any way you can stop the sale of a home with these cesspools before they're sold?
I don't think we can stop the sale. Representative Tansey's legislation, at point of sale, they would have to make some accommodation for that. Sometimes that works well, and sometimes it doesn't work well. But we do. DEM can give everybody a list of all the cesspools in the state.
I would like just to recognize Representative Art Handy, one of the sponsors of the bill, Frank Ferry, Representative Ferry, and Joe Shikarchi.
I just want to add that, as you see, most of the closures are in Warwick, and the legislators in Warwick are concerned about it. As unpopular as it was a couple of years ago, I did put a bill in to, the cesspool phase out from the body of waters, whatever, 200 feet, whatever it was. I did delay that to give Warwick especially some time to address this, and it's being addressed. We're all concerned about it, and as Rep. Tansey said, and whatever, it's about cost right now, and about, like the mayor said, there's a lot of people who say, well, why should I hook up to a sewer when I'm not paying anything right now? And then I have to pay the assessment, you're gonna have to pay that anyway, but to hook up and then to use it. But the results are these beach closings, and but we're working on it. And I'm also on the committee with Councilman Lattiser, and we're addressing it. So
where's the rest of your delegation?
The rest of the delegation?
The Warwick delegation, yeah.
They're probably working.
And in all fairness, Bob, to everybody, I'll speak for myself, we got very short notice, like 24 hours this was happening.
Okay.
And it was a struggle to be here, but we wanted to be here. So I'm not going to defend any of the council people, but I'm sure there will be more council people if we had more notice as well. So I think you hear from everybody, we're all committed. Everybody, I don't know anybody who's not committed to do this, but it's a balancing, as Teresa said. And point of sale is the most logical and the smart first step to take. And quite frankly, with the new disclosure laws today, as Teresa said, it is on the table. You have to disclose, buyers have to know, banks have to know, appraisers have to know. So we are committed. It's a process that has to happen. It has to be balanced with costs. You see that at the local level, the city council, the sewer authority, the mayor, and you see it at the city level. We fight, we always fight for good programs. It's just a matter of dollars. There's only so many dollars, and quite frankly, I'll just speak for myself. I'm not in favor of raising taxes across the board for any program. I think we as a state collect $8 billion every year. I think we have to find the allocation within the $8 billion. The same thing, my good friend the mayor here, chairman of RIPTA, we need to find a funding source for RIPTA, and that's another environmental concern. So it's a balancing of not only of tax dollars and businesses and homeowners, but it's a tax dollars, a balancing between environmental causes. So we have to look at clean water, clean air, lots of good things, public transportation.
Is there someone that can speak to the inequity of this issue in that? So I have this story. I actually live on the East Greenwich banks of Greenwich Bay and just got a $1,200 bill for my sewer. And my brother lives in Potawatomi, where they don't have sewers. So we both share the same body of water, and I'm paying a lot of money to, keep it clean, where my brother, who pays taxes to you, what do we do about that?
Well, that's where the partnership with East Greenwich, if we were to sue Potawatomi, first of all, we got a grant several years ago to look at that. We'd have to build our own wastewater treatment facility for Potawatomi. So it was not feasible to build your own sewer plant for one small area of the city, because the cost would be astronomical in order to pass that on to everybody who lives there.
You couldn't tie in the East Greenwich.
They wouldn't let us. It was not feasible to do that, and East Greenwich was not willing to let us tie in at that point.
They might be now, though.
They might be, but
Because
the
they're-
grant is now done. So that, we had to go with what we had at that moment, and we went through and looked at what it would cost each home in Potawatomi, and it was astronomical to build your own wastewater treatment facility for 300 homes. So that's why Potawatomi does not have sewage at this point.
Representative Haney, would you like to?
There was some, I just wanted, because, and again, I know the reporters have other questions, and Bob keeps asking all the questions. But you did ask that question about sort of the economics and what are we doing about it in the state legislature, and the cesspool phase-out is one of my personal priorities too. I think we need to deal with that, but I think the Baykeeper also mentioned, you know, a lot of the other issues that are out there. I mean, you look and you've got the sign up here on the telephone pole, pick up after dog droppings. I think that again, I'm not picking that as sort of a higher priority. What I'm saying though is that there's a range of things: the stormwater runoff, the overall the pervious pavement issues about trying to get us from something like the traditional roads over to some pervious pavement types of things. There's lots of things I think we need to continue to push hard at. It can't just be this one piece, because we're only going to be able to chip away at it 5% a year with the phase out. And it's a big problem, but it's probably, honestly, at this point, as we're getting, at least in terms of the bay, it's probably not the biggest one anymore, although it's still huge and we got to do what we can to get at. It's probably, a lot of it is the roads, the parking lots, and a lot of the other behavior that we also need to continue to go at. And I know the reps here, and I know the council people also are looking at that here in Warwick, but we need to think about that in terms of every next development that comes in. Let's make sure it's developed in a way that makes sense for protecting drinking water and swimming water too. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. In terms of the economy, I think there's some big pieces to think about too.
Any other questions from the press?
This might be a silly question, but if you just mentioned that you weren't able to build a wastewater treatment plant with a sewer for one neighborhood, well, if those houses have cesspools and it's too expensive to build a water treatment plant, what's the backup alternative?
They would have to do their own septic system.
Oh, I'm
ISDS.
sorry.
John?
Yeah, my question was on stormwater management. I thought the municipalities had to have a plan on stormwater management. Do you know how many municipalities do?
I don't have a good number for you on that, on the number of communities that have stormwater management programs in place. There is a lot of work has been done around the state in developing stormwater management plans. And it begins with taking an inventory of your infrastructure, knowing where your pipes are, your collection systems, how those tie into the sewer systems. Let me just say that if this were an easy problem, we wouldn't be here. This conversation that you're hearing illustrates how complex and challenging this issue is. But because it's complex and challenging is, in our view, not a reason not to push forward on each incremental component of addressing the problem. Sewering is part of it. Phasing out cesspools is part of it. Money is part of it. Financing is part of it. We, as Save the Bay, are very focused on trying to generate resources for municipalities to implement their own stormwater management plans. So, I think what you're capturing in this conversation is this is incredibly complex. But as a state, we have to come together, and as communities, we have to come together and see what we can do to address the different components and aspects of the problem. And we've called people here today to highlight and illustrate that this is a problem, and it has a very real impact on property values, on businesses, on the reputation for the state as a destination for tourism, and on individual residents' ability to use and enjoy the bay. So I am respectful of everybody's time here. I know a number of our elected officials will be happy to meet with you or talk to you afterwards, but I want to thank everybody for coming, and I do apologize on our behalf for the relatively short notice for including you. We had to make a choice about how large and expansive a group. We didn't want this to be necessarily a substitute for a town hall meeting, because that wasn't the purpose. Our goal here is to illustrate this. This is a problem that we have to deal with, and there are a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, but coming together we can get it done. So thank you all for coming.
Members of the media, the press kit that you have is on our Twitter feed too. There's a link to Google Docs if you want to get that electronically.